between our agency and ESL teachers who, you guys are working with the population that we're going to see very often. And they did a review of all of the responses to the 142 items on the pilot test. And then they worked on those questions to refine them for clarity, to make sure, we weren't confusing them before they even got into the door, and increase the answers that were acceptable for the test. So you'll notice in the study guides that your clients might get, there's context. It's not just rote question, answer, question, answer. There's a paragraph explaining the historical context or, for the question, so that way it's kind of more of a narrative instead of just rote memorization. Sometimes that helps. And then we also expanded the topic areas for these questions. So that way it covers a broader range of topics and it's more inclusive. Okay, so we're just going to talk about the different tests generally, and then we'll get into some more specifics. The speaking test is just them being able to go over the form, go over the questions. When I ask you your social security number, do you try to give me your birthday? You can kind of get a sense, is this person just trying to guess what I'm saying and respond to anything, or do they know what I'm asking them? And then the reading and writing test, we're trying to, kind of encapsulate everything in this test. So we're taking the civics test, but then the reading and writing are also incorporating that same type of information. So that way we're not saying, I drove here today in a car, which does test your English ability, but we're trying to make it make sense as a whole package, as part of the process. And so, maybe back, just So the history and government, we call it the civics test. As officers, we have standardized forms, so we can't pick and choose what questions we give, which is good. Nobody can pick the easy questions or the hard questions for somebody just because they had a bad day or their cup of coffee wasn't good. And they're all weighted so that they have the same level of difficulty. So that way we're trying to, it's not luck of the draw, you got the hard test. Everything should be generally consistent in the difficulty level. There are 10 questions that we'll ask, and the applicant has to get 6 of those questions correct to pass the test. So we'll read, we'll keep going until they get 6 correct, and once they have 6 correct, we'll stop, but they have up to the 10 questions answered. We can't give them new questions, we can't pull out another sheet if they just don't remember those, so it's a little bit of the luck of the draw which ones you remember the best, but it's supposed to be weighted so that it shouldn't affect it too much. As I mentioned before, it's an oral test, so I'm going to be reading the question to them and they're going to be answering orally the answer. And the civics questions are actually publicly available online and in the study guides. Those are not a secret. So they can practice them 100 different times before the test. And there's a lot of, we'll talk about the study materials also that we provide. But those questions are public, so it won't be a surprise what the questions are, just which ones they happen to get. For the reading and writing test, again, this is standardized, so I'm not going to be independently coming up with a question to either ask them to read or to write. It's already on the sheet for me. And the vocabulary, these are not public, so they won't know exactly the sentence I might ask them to write. But the vocabulary words which encompass the sentences are publicly available online. And in the back of the handbook or pamphlet, there is a list of the vocabulary words, but you can also find them on our website.
And I brought some flashcards if any of you want to use them in your classes.
Those are for us to keep.
Yes, ma'am.
And also when you are, if your client is coming in for fingerprinting, a lot of the study materials are available. Exactly, the book. We used to hand them out at InfoPass, but now it's basically pretty much after they apply for after they send in the application, they'll be scheduled for fingerprinting, and at fingerprinting. And just anecdotally, there's a CD in the back, and I've heard rave reviews about that. I can't tell you how many times they come in and say, oh, I've been listening to the CD in my car for the last 2 months. So it seems to be really helpful, just, from feedback.